So Chip Kelly took a shot at Oregon before the national championship game. I don't know if any of you saw this, but I was intrigued by it, shall we say, because I have always been a big fan of Chip Kelly. Since he departed Oregon, I've always rooted for him because of what he did for the Ducks, because of how he was treated whilst building Oregon into a perennial national power. But a couple days ago, he said, quote, "I'll tell you what," he was asked about, the Oregon game and the late game situation where Lanning read the rule book and put 12 on the field and whatnot. He said, quote, "I'll tell you what, it was a unique message with our players. You can't stop us with 11. You had to stop us with 12, Kelly said. You saw the final results of 11 versus 11, so that was a message to our team for the week leading up to the Rose Bowl that I think resonated really well with our guys." Well, first of all, if that was a big message, it clearly worked. That's the first thing. The second thing is if an Oregon coach made a quote like that, but was in the Ohio State position, Oregon fans would go bananas. I would go crazy and be like, this is the coolest thing ever. It doesn't feel great to be on the other end of it, but I don't think this is Chip Kelly wanting to get back at Oregon and make them, pay for this, that, and the other. I don't think it's that at all. Like, this is a completely fair quote to make. And by the way, the Lanning 12 men on the field thing, the rule got changed quickly. It should have. But Lanning was also brilliant to use it in that particular moment because the flag was thrown and they said, "Oh, we'll give you 5 yards, but we'll bring, however many seconds off the clock." That was a worthwhile calculation for him. And guess what? It absolutely was. But I saw this and a couple different people had sent it to me and we're saying, "Oh man, why this, why that," and Chip Kelly. And then, people had negative responses on Twitter and such, which is, pretty par for the course for Twitter, of course. But if Will Stein made that sort of coach when that had been done to Oregon, you'd love it because at the end of the day, you're not mad at that quote. You're not mad at Chip Kelly. What you are mad at is the fact that Oregon played a poor game against Ohio State and got outcoached on January 1st by Chip Kelly and others. That's what you're actually upset about there. If you hear that quote and think, why is he taking a shot at Oregon? He's just bitter. He was nothing at all. No, I don't think it's really that complicated or goes that deep. Maybe it was just great messaging. I mean, every single week after Oregon's 13 wins this year, what was something that I always talked about? Whatever motivational tick Dan Lanning used on Ducks versus them. This is what really good coaches do. They push whatever buttons they have to get their team in the right mindset. Well, clearly Chip pushed the right buttons. Clearly that's something that worked for Ohio State. And everything that Lanning did throughout the year until the Rose Bowl worked really well for Oregon. So I have absolutely no problem with him saying that. If you don't want to be able to say it, well, Oregon's got to go out there and win the football game. But alas, they did not. So I didn't think this was a part of the Chip Kelly revenge tour or anything like that. I think it was him making an honest comment, and I have no idea how involved that quote actually was at practice throughout the week, but he was asked a question by a reporter. He answered it. It's a good answer. It's a great answer. Because trust me, if it were on your side, the other example that pops in my head with this with regards to coach quotes that gets flipped around if the shoe's on the other foot is, which is a particularly apt metaphor here with regards to Nike and such. But when Carlos Lachlan was at Oregon, I used to see comments all the time, no soft baked cookies or soft batch cookies or whatever, his tagline was when he was Oregon's running back coach. I mean, no, none of that. And then he goes to Ohio State. He is a soft batched cookie. Soft bake. We don't want him. He's not any good. Like, there's a tribal nature to sports. It's okay. You can lean into it. It's all right. But I thought it was a great quote, quite frankly. I saw it and thought, yeah, that's how I'd want my coach to respond to a situation like that. And it worked out pretty well for him. So that was the first thing. Wrapping up, well, not entirely, but mostly on the Ohio State. The Ohio State aspect of today's show. This question came from, I believe, a Locked On Ducks insider. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't jot down my notes perfectly on who sent me this question. But do people forget that Evan Stewart didn't play in the Rose Bowl? No, I'm not saying Oregon wins if he did play, but he burned OSU in the first game. Him not being out there allowed Ohio State to just focus on stopping Tez. If Smith didn't play, does Ohio State's offense score that much? I think you make a valid point here. And Evan Stewart got dinged up going into the Rose Bowl, and clearly that disrupted Oregon's game plan at some level. Because, yes, Jim Knowles outcoached Will Stein, and that was a big factor because Ohio State's defense was really good. And by the way, I have not done a full rewatch of the Rose Bowl yet. It's still too fresh. I will at some point, and I'll have some thoughts on, what all went down, or more thoughts, I should say. I've obviously had plenty of thoughts on what went down there, but yeah, it clearly plays a factor. I mean, Justice Lowe is an, I think, incredibly capable wide receiver and can have a bright career with the Ducks. Evan Stewart went 7 for 145 and a touchdown on mostly Denzel Burke and this Ohio State secondary. They torched this unit through the air in a way that nobody else did this season. And Evan Stewart was a big part of that because he made some ridiculously contested catches and ran some really good routes, and Gabriel threw some really good passes and such. And he was also given the opportunity to have 1v1 situations, I think more than what Oregon's receivers were able to come up with in the Rose Bowl. And, the inability of Oregon to run the ball was ultimately, I think, just a death nail against that Ohio State defense because it's really good, well schemed, well coached, bunch of talented players at every single position group. But I don't think Oregon wins the game if Evan Stewart plays. I do think the offense scores more than once, at least gets a field goal somewhere. Like, you can't take a guy out who is that singularly impactful and then say, well, Oregon's offense would be the same. No, it's not. Trayshawn Holden's really good. I'm a huge Trayshawn Holden fan. Stewart had the matchups that they wanted to take advantage of in the first Ohio State game. Now, Holden obviously wasn't there because of the spitting incident. He got ejected for the game, rightfully so. But yeah, it's a factor. You take Jeremiah Smith out of the Rose Bowl, and no, I don't think Ohio State has 34 points. Do I think they have over 20? Yes. Do I think Oregon still has less than 13? Yes, absolutely. So it's closer, but no, I don't think Oregon wins. I think it makes a difference. But having Stewart back for next year, I'm really excited to see what this wide receiving core becomes, because you're going to have a veteran in Evan Stewart, a semi-veteran, like Malik Benson's kind of a veteran, kind of not. Like, he's just someone that I don't really know because I haven't seen him put together an entire season where he's been a primary target in a capable passing offense. But I love the options and the depth that Oregon's receiving core is going to have next year. I think DeCorian Moore could absolutely be a starter right away. And I also think that the way that receiver room plays out can be largely decided in spring football, because I know what Stewart's going to be. Everything else is kind of a question mark. And that's okay. That's okay. That doesn't mean that the wide receiver room can't be as productive and talented as it was a season ago. I actually legitimately think that it can be, but it just makes it one of the most interesting groups because the least number of positions have been decided. And I think spring ball is going to tell us a lot on that front. But Stewart coming back, do not undersell in your head the importance of having him there, because there are so many unknown commodities. You want to have one known, one sure thing, and Evan Stewart is that.